Welcome to the Greenway Outdoors Podcast, your trusted source for outdoor information and entertainment. The Greenway Outdoors is also an internationally syndicated TV show and conservation advocate aimed at bringing millennials and Generation Z into the outdoors. Welcome to the Greenway Outdoors.
Hello and welcome to episode 64 of the Greenway Outdoors Podcast. My name is Kyle Green.
I'm AJ.
My name is Jeff Hutchins.
The funny thing is that's just how he talks.
I'm Ryan.
You know what? I like my intro. People maybe don't always know who we are. Maybe they stumble across
why would
us.
you add to it this week?
What do you mean? I always say
My name is.
Oh, I don't know.
You gonna give him your life story too?
You know what?
Well, why are you saying that? He does do that when he goes out in public.
Maybe this worked through Google AdWords and you take it easy. Speaking of annoying people, so I'm part of this group. It is called Brook Trout Nation on Facebook, okay? I'm a loser. I like brook trout a whole bunch. They're my favorite fish. So any opportunity I get to see a brook trout, I want to see it. It's just my thing. That's why we've got new Greenway gear coming out soon.
Yes, we do. I'm pretty pumped for that.
Yeah, one of the shirts is a brook trout themed shirt. Super stoked about it. It's going to be awesome. Long sleeve fishing shirt. But anyhow, so I'm part of this group just because I wanted to see pictures of brook trout. Now, when I joined, I didn't notice like the regulations because I just see Brook Trout Nation. I'm like, yeah, that's part of my nation.
When do I move?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So I sign up for it and I become part of the group. And people are posting pictures, and I look at it, and I'm like, I really do like brook trout a whole bunch. And then I realize that people, like, whenever they're posting pictures of, like, some of them are in creels, the fish. Some of them are on stringers. Some of them are, they're clearly getting 8. And I'm like, okay, sweet. And I'd always liked the picture and stuff. And then I realized, like, this one had, like, 500 comments or something crazy on it. So I clicked on it, and it was a guy. He had the fish all lined up on a rock that he caught, and he said, these are going in the frying pan, you know? And I was like, good for that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked
What a monster.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Yeah, exactly. So it turns out that the page is a catch and release page. So this guy, some of my favorite.
Are people releasing out of a creel? I don't understand.
No. Those were the bad people.
Oh.
The bad people.
Yeah, the bad people.
So this is an online mosh pit, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Nice.
They're woke, okay? First of all, but
Fish woke.
So one of my favorite ones was to that guy who posted putting him on a rock. I hope you step in dog poo and get stung by a bee tomorrow. You're a monster. Oh my gosh! So another person said, "Oh my gosh, so sad."
9-year-old.
I know. I like that they didn't want to swear. They didn't.
I hope someone gives you a purple nurple.
Right.
Like the worst one you've ever had.
Like if they grab both nips and
then after that, you have to eat broccoli.
So he said that they were going to go in the frying pan.
Yeah.
So what are people mad about?
It's a catch and release page.
The rule to be in this Facebook page or whatever it is.
So I'm about to blow your mind.
Oh, so all the pictures that you see, people are putting them back.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So-
for sure not about eating it, treating it as a resource. It's only about torturing fish.
Right.
Go ahead.
Catch and release.
That's what's funny about it is, so catch and release, the idea behind it, I've always made fun of it because it just seems silly.
It does.
If you have so much respect for an animal or a fish or whatever, I mean, Ryan, you have a dog. Would you put a hook in your dog's mouth and drag him around the yard just to get closer?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
That's how you train them.
That was last Saturday.
The point is, it'd be rather silly, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that would
of
be,
course.
be like insane. And in this situation,
The equivalent is almost like putting your dog on a 3-foot chain, and that's it for their entire life. Like you're torturing that animal. That's not supposed to be that way. I could agree to that.
I feel like what they should be doing is a modern day of like bird watching, but for trout. If you want to see them up close, but you don't want to catch them and keep them, then there's tools in the modern age that you could do that with, and you don't have to.
you go to the
catch
zoo.
them.
Go to the zoo.
Well,
They got fish at the zoo.
We've
You
spotted
can look.
several with our GoPros, just walking around in a stream. You know, like just do that then.
Yeah.
Let's-
Why you torture them? Yeah, I don't quite understand it, and I find that the people, there's like a specific group of people
Oh, for
that
sure.
seem to be the ones that are like catch and release only. It makes no sense to me. Here's the thing.
How do you be catch and release only, but also you're against that they're going to eat them?
Yeah, it makes no sense. Well, I didn't say it made sense. That's why we're making fun of them.
As they should. As one should.
These same people, as they're driving up, they're listening to like Creed or Nickelback. Okay, go
I
ahead.
still don't know why no one likes Creed or Nickelback. So the idea is
these people have this page dedicated to catch and release only. I've got some questions. None of you have ever.
Me too.
None of you have ever foul hooked a fish. None of you have ever had them swallow the hook, so they're gonna die if you release them. You don't keep them. They're like, oh, we don't post pictures of those ones.
So it must not be real.
So you only post pictures of things. Yeah, it's like it's like an Instagram model where she makes her life look perfect, but it's not.
Yeah.
You're like that, but with fish. I just think it's messed up to think that, like, to be judgmental. And then they're like, well, you know what? You can keep them and eat them if you want. But this page is specifically for those who only want to show catch and release photos.
Then put that in the name.
Well, they do put it in the description. I missed it. You know, I did miss it. And one of my favorite.
It's a perfect example. Some people don't read, let it go.
One guy goes, you know what? Catch and release. More like catch and grease.
Oh, nice.
Which made me laugh. That was like a total dad joke in the whole thing.
Extremely.
The summary of this
Catch and
story.
grease.
The summary of this story is catch and release to me, going out with the intent of just catching the fish and letting them go. I never quite understood. Now, there's certain rare species that you can't keep, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain rare species, but you'd like to see one up close. And that's fine. I mean, if you want to go out and fish for those, or you catch some and they're under the legal limit, you do your best not to harm them, and you let them go, and you do the right thing, and you try and treat them like a resource. But to go out there with only the intention of ever catching fish, torturing them, and letting them go,
Especially
just for the
fish that's so sensitive.
delicate.
Like, if you touch it at all, it very possibly could die because you've disrupted the membrane that it has on the outside of its body. It's slime.
They're extremely sensitive fish.
To play devil's advocate.
This isn't a smallmouth bass where you can beat them up and then throw them back and they're fine. Brook trout are sensitive.
What is that you're doing with smallmouth bass?
What'd you say? But to play devil's advocate, I could see a situation where that would work, where, let's say, you are a catch and release fisherman, only under the circumstance that you caught the fish in a specific way that you know it's going to survive that. Because I could also see some of these.
You're still torturing it though.
Yeah, in a sense. But I mean,
But only if they
you're
feel
doing
pain.
the same thing with undersized fish.
Sure. Oh yeah, but you understand that. That's like you're doing that to still gather a resource, and you're letting the undersized fish go because it's not responsible to take the life for that lack of meat. There's
What
just
I'm
not
saying
enough
is, like, if say it swallows the hook, then that would be the point where you keep it because you know it's not gonna live.
right.
So that would be the circumstance where.
But don't take a picture of it, no matter how pretty it is, because that would be wrong then.
Yeah, I guess that's up to the individual. Well, whoever's doing this, it's a specific person, like you said. So I'm not on board regardless, but I can see like someone who's sensitive.
Going off that, you know what I hate? When you have a fish that is under the limit where you can't keep it because it's too small, but it has swallowed the hook.
Yeah, that's
I
a
wish
rough
there was
feeling.
a way, like, just believe me when I say that it swallowed a hook, and I don't want to throw it back because it's going to die. I don't want to waste it, So
Now imagine just wading through the water and doing that to every fish you catch, which is that's catch and release fishing. It's like, I mean, it's a dark little thing. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It's like, well, it's like, do you go deer hunting with a paintball gun just to know that you could? I mean, it's like, I didn't kill him, but hey,
you go out with airsoft.
yeah.
The pointy ones.
They make airsoft guns that would kill a deer now. I guess though, when you get right down to it, the catch and release thing is rather silly.
I have a hard time believing that all these like high and mighty people who only do catch and release aren't taking some.
Well, yeah, that's why I just kind of came up with this funny bit to combat that, is where, let's say you're at a boat launch and some guy's giving you crap, preferably an old timer about some ways of the old. How people used to be like, okay, boomer. You could be like, okay, catch and release. Like call them that.
Yeah, like put them in their little thing. Yeah, like that's their nickname now.
Yeah, I like that.
So, another story that I came across that is a lot more, I think, exciting than that one. There's a woman in Sheboygan. Her name's Jennifer. She runs a scuba diving tour company. Okay, Sheboygan, Michigan. Where is that specifically?
I actually don't know.
It's
like northern middle lower
peninsula. It's lower peninsula. So if you go straight up through the middle, it's
I think it's just off to the right.
Should be Lake Michigan. They'd be on then.
No,
No.
the other one.
It's
Straight
like
off to the
it's
left.
like the
Oh, yeah.
roughly
Huron.
the knuckle of your ring finger, maybe.
That's not what he said.
Or is it higher?
That's
than
not what he said. Why don't we let Ryan tell us?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna look up where Sheboygan is.
I think it's somewhere around here.
Really?
Yes.
I was under the impression it was more west.
Doesn't
Or it could be farther south. But
Isn't
I think
like-
it's, if you split Michigan right down the middle, I think it's on the
the right side.
right side of Michigan.
Ryan is right. It is at the. If you're looking at the hand, it would be at like the tippy top right there,
Okay.
and so that would be barely Lake Huron, but not far from Lake Michigan. It's
Is-
almost where they touch.
Oh, I'm confusing it with Charlevoix.
It's really
Yeah.
close to the Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
I was gonna guess that.
So anyhow, she runs a scuba diving.
Now that we've
Tour
lost
company.
half of the people listening.
Yeah. She runs a scuba diving tour company, so she would dive down and take people to shipwrecks. Really cool. So while she was down there on a tour, she found a bottle in it, and inside it, she noticed there was a note in it, old green-looking bottle. So she brought it up, and then the bottle was like 2/3 filled with water, but they took the note out, opened it up, and sure enough, it was a note from somebody.
From her.
It's like,
She's 130 years old.
Jennifer, she died 30 years ago. No. So the note was dated 1926, which is pretty cool. So all it said, though, that part's not too exciting, was to whoever finds this letter, please return it to George Morrow
Morrow. Yeah.
of Sheboygan, Michigan.
Interesting.
was
So it
dated
hadn't traveled
1920
far.
No, he probably chucked it off and she found it.
She found it a week later.
So she posted about it, and then I believe a local news story covered it and everything like that. So then she was like, got hundreds of calls about it. Everybody was calling in
It's
about
a
it.
very common name up there, apparently.
Yeah, apparently
Really?
that name
Yeah.
in Sheboygan is like everybody's got that name.
Yeah.
So because of that, she was like kind of sifting through everyone, deciding it was their family member. Finally, she got a call on Father's Day of all days. And this girl was like emotional about it. Like, that's my dad's handwriting, blah, 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 blah. Her name was Michelle. And it turned out she was the daughter of George. He died in 1995, so unfortunately he'll never know that it was found. But it was really exciting for the daughter to be able to like get the letter and then have it. And it's like a possession of her dad's writing.
1925.
And it was under, there's world wars and stuff since then. That
A lot of history happened since that point.
Exactly. That always kind of fascinated me, like when we were sturgeon fishing. The sturgeon could have been alive during World War II, and here
Yeah.
I am, my stupid butt catching it.
Yeah.
Just to release it.
Yeah, you're torturing
Just to release it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's interesting. So there was no I was hoping there was going to be like $1 million prize that came along with it.
A treasure hunt or something.
Yeah,
Something
that would have been cool.
Well,
I
you find your
like-
story then, and I'll find mine.
I like that.
Like, it hurt me.
Her goal is to get people to scuba dive and to like appreciate the sport and yada yada. So they took the bottle and the note and a picture of him from 1926 and made this little thing that she keeps in her office to like show people.
Oh, that's
I think
cool.
pretty
So
neat.
now it sounds like since she was trying to promote her business, she
Yep.
made the whole thing
She
up,
made it up.
to make more money. Think of that.
Or it was
Publicity stunt.
or it was to promote the legacy of a
You know why I think it's real?
100-year-old man. But okay.
Because, like, the note would have said something crazier if it was a fake. That or she's a very unoriginal, like, she's very
I don't know.
Bush did 9/11.
Oh my gosh!
It's dated 1920.
Oh my god! It's dated 1920. They knew. They were planning it.
You
The Illuminati. That's actually really funny, Jeff. For you, especially. So,
Oh, my name's Jeff.
so speaking of torturing fish, we got a new episode coming up. I'm just kidding. What a
Where
build
does
up.
he
Who
go
tortured
over that?
who?
So speaking of torturing fish, I guess that's probably not a good intro, but we went noodling for catfish.
I was like, where are you
I
going
loved
with
it. I
this?
loved it.
We went noodling for catfish recently. We went down to Greenville, Texas. What a cool name of a town. But we went to Greenville.
Follows us everywhere we go.
Yes, it does.
Green everything.
Dirty, dirty name.
Least attractive of the colors.
Least attractive.
Dirty name.
I can't imagine him being anything but an expert on something, least attractive. So,
Yeah, I've been to
feel-
follow you around for the last how many years?
To be
I
fair,
don't
he
even
does have
wanna
a
think about
fiance.
it.
what was
Yeah.
that? Well, I wasn't taking a shot at her. She's way hotter than him.
Oh, no. That's what I'm saying. Someone likes him.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. We're not supposed to mention her. I'm just kidding. His boyfriend gets upset. You thought I was, but I was really. Oh,
You went with it.
No, I'm just kidding. No, we're all supportive. Speaking of boyfriends, the other day, so Ryan and I were out filming for the Catfish episode, and while we were filming, it was pouring down rain, and our friend Erica's mom happened to be driving by, and she goes, "Hey, Ryan," because poor Ryan's just getting poured on because we didn't have an
Just
umbrella.
getting soaking wet.
She goes, "I have an umbrella for you can use, but throw it away when you're done. I don't even want it." So she pulls it out of her car, and it's a rainbow umbrella and gives it to him. So Ryan's out there in the pouring down rain, but he has to use the rainbow umbrella because there's no other choice. So he's filming with the rainbow umbrella. Looked adorable.
Kept me dry.
You stood out too.
It was worth it. Yeah, honestly.
That's the other thing. On that dirt road, it was probably a good thing.
Yeah, because like it was one of the roads where it's so hilly that like you never know when someone will come over the corner and not see you. So
That's true.
And everyone driving by went, "Oh yeah, Pride Month." Huh.
plus it's pouring down
Yeah,
rain.
that's true.
Was it Pride Month?
June?
I think
Yeah,
so,
right now, yeah.
Same as my birthday.
I thought June was something else.
I don't know.
You're like my birthday.
Yeah.
Anyways, we went and filmed a Catfish episode in
Catfish.
Texas. Yeah. When we went there, we had low expectations to say the least. We have gone on 4 Catfish filming trips since we've started this show 6 years ago. Every one of them has been a complete bust.
Yep.
Reason being is because everyone says that they're an expert on catfish. No matter what dates we choose, no matter when we go, no matter how we do it, it never works out.
We've gone earlier, and they're like, "Oh, it's too early." We've gone later, and they're like, "Oh, you just missed it." But it's like
Should have been here.
we've heard the opposite at the same time. So it's not like I feel like they're just saying that to cover them not being able to get.
Oh, of
fish,
course.
You know, like
The worst, though, is it seemed like every place we would go, every river we would go to, they'd be like, oh, my gosh, they'd reach in a hole, and they'd be like, there's a fish in there for sure. And then, like, we'd go in the hole, and there'd be no fish in there, and they'd be like, oh, he must have blown out when you guys were doing it. And that continually happened to the point where we're like, I don't think there's ever a fish.
I think I was the first one to say that.
Yeah.
They're messing with us.
It was funny. It was funny the one time AJ goes, I don't think anybody knows where a fish is. I don't think there's catfish.
They don't exist.
He was like lost his mind after 8 hours of being in the sun with nothing to show for
I'm
it.
sure it blew out.
So this time we actually got to go with Nate. Now Nate is somebody we met online. Ryan was in one of his chat rooms, and no, I'm just kidding. We met. Like chat rooms are still a thing.
That was brilliant.
You seen the movie Out Cold?
Oh yeah.
That movie is classic, and every time I say the word
Underrated.
chat room,
Catfish.
yeah, yeah, like I'm doing ADD big time. But every time I watch or say the word chat room, I think of Out Cold because it's so funny in that movie.
great
When you
movie.
say the word chat room,
You had to
Not
see a
recent,
movie.
not often, but when I do, I think of that movie. I watched that movie pretty recently.
question me again.
Question me again. You remember? Come on.
The hot tub. Come on.
Hey, yeah. The blonde in that. Get out of here with that. Anyhow,
I'm telling.
telling who? You'll tell no one, yeah.
You'll make
So we meet Nate. Now Nate is actually got quite the arsenal as far as a resume goes. He was on River Monsters. He was on, which is obviously on, I think it's on History, with Jeremy Wade. He was on Big Fish or whatever it's called. That's on Netflix. He's been on like all the big time programs. The only one he hadn't been on big time program is the Greenway Outdoors. So I figured I'd do him a solid
Big time.
and allow him to take us out. Now we
Round out his resume for him.
exactly with a little bit of garbage. So
Some neon green garbage.
yeah, exactly. So he takes us out. We go to Texas. Of course, we get the greatest thunderstorm that has ever hit Texas in the entire world ever.
100-year storm.
Exactly. So
It wasn't on the report. There was no, oh, it's gonna rain. It was fine until the day we got there.
yep. And then it became a 100% chance of rain. So we were supposed to noodle 2 days.
Daily.
It got ruined down to 1 day because it was just pouring the first day. So we went bowling and to the arcade
Yes.
the 1 day to kill time, which was fun.
That was fun.
But we finally got to go out with him, and our expectations were like, all right. He's like, normally I go in Oklahoma in small rivers and streams, but you guys are too early. And we're like, oh,
Yes.
Of course.
no, we're not. He goes, so we're going to go to a lake. I go there sometimes. It tends to warm up faster because it's in Texas versus Oklahoma. And I think that would be our best bet at finding anything. But we are early. And we're like, okay, well, He's tapered our expectations, but they couldn't get any lower as it is anyhow. So
That's true.
we go out with him. For the first hour, we're checking different holes and not finding anything in it. And even Nate was like, it might be a little early. We finally get to a hole where he's like, there's a fish in there. So Jeff goes in to go check the hole, and he goes down there 2 or 3 times. He's like, I feel nothing in this hole.
I've seen this before.
This hole was a good size, too. I put my arm in. He goes, it's a big hole. I put my arm in and couldn't touch the back. Can I put my foot in? He goes, as long as you don't get stuck. So I went in.
Got stuck.
I put one foot in, felt around a little bit, still felt nothing. So I put both feet in and pulled up to my waist and couldn't touch the back. So this is like an underwater cave kind of thing. And I'm like, if there's a fish in there, is there something on the other side? Is it like there's a lot of room in there? And if you're going to find him, you got to feel around.
Right. So Jeff failed miserably in front of everyone. Cameras were on, rolling. You guys saw it. But it was so funny. Every time you guys would go under, AJ's like, here we go again. Yes, AJ, when you said you didn't get him. But I ended up going down with him, and in Jeff putting his feet in and stirring everything up, I'm sure it moved the catfish around where it knew it's like, hey, something's going on. And that's kind of the thing. I think one of the takeaways from this trip is everyone thinks noodling is you go underwater, you stick your hand in a hole, which is a nest for the catfish. They're going to bite your hand, and then you're going to try and bring them out, and that's the game plan. That's like not really it. What actually happens is you go down there might be a fish in there. It's going to be aggravated, but if it's ever been noodled before, or if you're disrupting it a lot like you were with your feet and stuff, it's more likely to try and hide its face and mouth and like kind of turn away. It's like they know you're trying to grab them. Yeah, they get smart. Yeah. So, and this first one was 50 pounds. So she's old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's an old gal.
No doubt.
She's, she had a walker in there. That was what Jeff felt.
I wish that we could see what it was doing in there, because all I can imagine is the fish going.
Yeah. Yeah. Or,
no.
Or every time you reach in, it's
Don't
like.
make me do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just missing it. So I go down there, and as soon as I reach in, I immediately feel a tail. And I'm like, okay, well, that's. So I go, well, I'm blocking the hole. I'll grab it just to see what happens. You know what I mean? I'll grab, and granted, I have no idea how big the fish is. And the reason why Jeff can only go by feel is the fact that it's basically chocolate milk mud water. You can't see a quarter inch in this stuff.
Yeah.
A blind person would probably be more capable at noodling than us at this point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because their senses are stronger. So, like, because they always
Wow,
can't
I never
see.
thought of that.
I did. I was like, I wish I was blind. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm under the water. Someone's listening, and they just...
Definitely not watching.
Yeah. Oh. Jeez. So we go in, and I grab that tail, and I go, I wonder what will happen if I grab it. My full expectation is I'm going to grab it, and it's going to freak out and move around, but then, hey, maybe its mouth is... or maybe it'll turn and bite me. I'm blocking the hole, so I'll do it. I grab it, and it doesn't move. And I go, okay, now let's make sure this isn't. Yeah, that's a tail. So I'm feeling it around on the tail, and I can tell that because I was like, if I grabbed a stupid snake, I'm gonna lose it.
And this is a big snake.
Yeah,
That's the case.
So I check, and it is for sure a fish. And now I'm like, okay, well now I'm down here. Oh God, how are they? Now that I got a hold of the tail, I kind of pulled the tail out of the hole a little bit, and the fish is starting to move around. I go, if I let go now, it might blow out of the hole. God, I hope someone comes down to help me. So I felt like 45 minutes later, Nate comes down, and he grabs my arm, and I grab his hand and guide it to the tail so he can feel that I'm holding the tail. And I hear him kind of like laugh underwater, like, and then
Stupid.
yeah, stupid. Because you're not supposed to grab the tail. It's like etiquette 101. Because as soon as you pull them out, they're gonna shake you off like
They're slimy.
Yeah. You understand. So I'm start to pull it out, and I feel him reach up the fish, and he's trying to get my hand to grab up to the front of it. But we can't communicate, but I can feel him realize, okay, it's too big. I don't know that I got the wingspan with the tail to hold it tight. I want to keep it close to my body, plus the reach around. The old reach around. So I'm trying to reach around this fish, and I'm no good at it. You're probably a pro. And I'm trying to get I'm trying to get
What is happening?
Yeah, I'm trying to get this fish. You made fun of blind people. I can say whatever I want. So I'm trying to pull this fish out, and I can feel him feel like, okay, I'm going to have to grab the mouth. Because, like, what kind of leverage am I going to have on a fish this big to, like, go like this to kind of grab the mouth with one hand, and that's
and hope that you don't put your hand in weird and then it grabs and twists. Or
yeah,
something.
they do an alligator spin like you wouldn't believe. And he had
Yeah.
already told me it was a blue cat when he had like felt whatever. He was aware that it was a blue cat. And they're the meaner of the fish for sure. The blue cats are just feisty, whereas the flatheads are like, it's like more consistent. So I'm trying to get the reach around on this fish. So he grabs the mouth. Granted, I've been underwater this entire time. My head's like I have a headache. I can feel my heartbeat in my head, like the pressure's on. And finally, we yank this thing out of the hole. We start pulling it out, and I'm yanking because he reached in the hole to grab the front of the mouth. The fish is scraping its stomach and its head in the hole. So it's small. It's bigger than the entrance of the hole. And I'm like, how did you get in there,
how'd you get in there?
stupid? So I've got both feet against the hole, the rock pile, trying to pull it out of it. And we're doing it together. Finally, we come busting out of the water, and I've got it by the tail, and he's got it in a headlock and one hand in the mouth, and we're just frantic trying to hold on to this thing to get the and we get the stringer in. We end up getting him. So I hoist her over my shoulder, and it turns out she was a female because she dropped a bunch of eggs all over me. So we ended up letting her go, putting her back in her hole so the majority of her eggs could go back and nest and everything like that. And this whole scene that we just talked about is in the latest episode of The Greenway Outdoors, which you can see on Sportsman Channel, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. By the time you're seeing this, it's probably 2 weeks away from airing. But what an exciting episode. Set your DVR for it. It was
cool.
It was insane. It was insane. So I just wanted to summarize a little bit, aside from the story I just told you, is what is noodling. So catfish, this is interesting. The breeding of the catfish is really, really interesting. So the blue cat, what happens is the male will go out and make a nest. And he'll spend a lot of time doing it. He'll build it. He'll find, they look for holes, like I said, in rock piles. They'll look for hollowed out logs. That's their favorite, but that's, few and far between when you're out there looking for them, or a lot of them are hogged up early.
And they'll also make their own just in the riverbed if they can weasel their way into some mud.
Yeah.
And then just spin and do whatever.
They'll bring
until
rocks
it makes a
into
hole.
it, whatever they got to do.
Yeah.
And then they also like old boat ramps. So the boat ramp, imagine like the cement that goes into the water, they can dig out underneath it a hole. And then what they'll do is when they dig it out, that kind of brings like the sandy bottom, because like there's a lot of gummy goo along those things that you feel with your feet, and then all of a sudden you'll feel like a sandy, rocky bottom, and then you'll feel a hole, and that's very likely a catfish hole. And then you do nothing else but go down there, reach your hand in, and then feel around for a fish. Sometimes they bite you. I'll be honest, maybe it was the early season, but most of them weren't biting.
Yeah.
Most of them were
Hiding.
yeah, most of them were just trying to get away from you.
Did you pry your fingers in the mouth?
A lot of times.
Okay.
Yeah. So what?
Did you get bit once?
I did.
don't know
That
that I
little
got
one.
bit.
That little one bit me a few times, but only my fingertips.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was mostly like the littler one that I got. I had to like press him against the wall and then work my hand into his mouth, and he just like did not want it. It's like
Oh, so they lock up pretty good.
yeah. Oh, they can close it hard. It's hard to get it open. It's like prying. So what happens is the male will go in and he will build the nest out, and then he kind of showboats his breastises, and then no, just kidding. He showboats his body and is like, "Hey, come on in here, look at this nest, baby." Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how, like in water like that, how are they? How?
They can see.
How?
I don't know.
Do
Well,
they?
and through they feel vibrations. They can.
That's
there's a
what.
lot of different-
What sensory
They
like?
call it the motion in the ocean in health class, if you know what I mean.
'Cause-
Yeah. So they
Because I mean, visibility is visibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, a lot of fish, if you get one fish feeding, that, like say they feed off the bottom of a lake, if they start feeding, they make a specific kind of how
Vibration.
they flutter to stay in one place while they're eating. The other fish will sense that and come in. So they can feel, and they can.
Yeah.
They're like the blind people we were talking about, where their senses are
Good for them.
very heightened.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the winners in this.
Yeah.
So anyhow, the male will build the nest and then showboat to get a female to come in and lay her eggs. So the female will go in. Now he'll spend a couple weeks getting the nest ready.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it'll take a day if he's in a rush. But the female will come in, and a male can actually fertilize like 7 to 9 different spawns a season. So. But a female will come in. She'll drop anywhere from I think it's 2,000 up to 100,000 eggs.
Wow.
Okay, so she'll drop those eggs, and then he will fertilize them, and then he will push her out of there. So he'll be defensive to get her out of there. He's the one that stays with the babies, not the male, not the female.
So it's like seahorses, where they raise the young.
So the eggs will hatch, and then the fry will be in there, and they'll stay with the male for a little while, and then eventually they'll work their way out and go out on their own. Now the success rate of living is low.
Of
100,000 eggs. They're not all surviving.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, is there a percentage on?
I don't know it.
20 make the team.
Yeah.
They play the numbers game, assuming that a lot of them are either going to get sick or predators or.
I think it's mostly predators.
I wonder what the loss is on just the odds of being fertilized once the eggs are laid, and then what the odds are making it to being hatched.
I think the odds of being fertilized are very high.
Oh, well, like 100,000 eggs, and then it's in the water. Just that whole.
No, he's
mass.
dumping. He's saving it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
No hanky panky.
They're in a confined little hole, so it's not.
Yeah, there's not a lot of water flow.
Yeah.
Although they do get stacked up. Like we grabbed a few of them, like a pile of them out of the one hole, because I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah. And you had them all over your back.
That was true. The one that laid eggs all over me.
Yeah.
What kind of defense mechanism is that?
I don't think
get
it was
rid of my eggs.
I don't think it is. I think it was just the pressure. She just couldn't hold them in anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think because when I lifted her over my shoulder,
sphincter.
it was like,
weight she's not used to.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's just things poop when they get scared.
happens.
You do it you got so nervous about this podcast, you wet yourself. I mean, for you to ask.
Yeah, I know.
So I just found that interesting about the catfish. And then one of the other things I wanted to cover on it was when we were talking to Nate, we were talking about there seems to be two camps, and we covered this in the actual episode, but the people that think blue cats are better and the people that think flatheads are better. And I've seen several groups go back and forth on that. And like when we first learned, we're like, oh, the one group taught us blue cats are better. So we're like, okay, blue cats are better. And then now getting all the information. So blue cats tend to eat they're big time scavengers. So they'll go scoping around the bottom. They're what people call bottom feeders, but they'll snoop around the bottom eating anything they can find, dead, alive, whatever, crustaceans, frogs. Ryan, you did the conservation corner on this episode, so you're very familiar. They'll eat anything. Whereas the flathead is more like a bass. It's a predator. So it goes after and eats live fish, bluegills, sunfish, minnows, things like that. That's 95% of its diet. Not to say once in a while it won't pick up a scrap of something, but for the most part, a flathead is a fish eater.
Yeah.
So
more predatory.
yeah. So because of that, the meat tends to be a lot whiter, a lot cleaner, and a lot better tasting. So going off Nate's camp and having the opportunity to try both blue and flathead catfish, I'm officially in the flathead catfish.
I think the blues are cooler. I don't know about
Just
taste.
looking?
Yeah, I just think they look cooler.
Well, they're meaner.
Yeah.
They're harder to grab for sure. Just in my experience, they were harder to grab. The blue cats, like the flathead, they bit your hand and they bit your hand. Like, okay, bite down and grab. The blue cats were like jerks. They would bite like a fingertip and then twist as hard as they could and then fury away. Like it's like, and they're like snap,
ferocious.
snap, snap. There was this one that I was like determined to get, and Nate's like, I don't even bother with the little blue cats because I like my fingers. And I was like, well, he's littler. It's not a big deal. He goes, okay, help yourself. I went in there and almost lost my finger 8 times to this darn thing. I was so remember the little. If I say little, but he was almost like 25 inches.
Yeah. I mean, compared to the other ones we had caught, it was a little one.
And then we won't spoil it for you, but Jeff had quite the experience with the one he got.
Yeah.
The scale on the one that I just told the story about, the female I had, when we weighed her, she freaked out and the scale went in the water. And it was a digital scale. Jeff ended up catching one later on that arguably it was definitely in the range of the Texas state record.
Yeah.
For the largest blue catfish ever caught noodling.
Without a doubt, this thing was
Ginormous.
massive.
Now, I told everyone about Nate's resume. He said this was the largest blue catfish he's ever seen in his life. So,
And
That's pretty great.
our scale broke.
and our scale broke.
Womp womp.
Now, here's the thing. It was a female, so we had to let it go. She was full of eggs, too, and those are eggs you want in the system.
Yeah.
So we let her go because that was the right thing to do. But when we let her go, we also let go the opportunity of ever knowing whether she was the Texas state record, which kind of has a cool feel to it.
Yeah, now it becomes folklore.
Yeah. Like, oh, she's out there somewhere.
Well, we got the state record, but you had to be there.
Yeah.
That's a fish story.
It's and it's real. Well, the nice thing is it's on camera, so like there's things that like defensive. Here's the
I feel
thing:
like it'd be cooler to have the record though.
the fish that I caught was 50 pounds. Jeff's fish was darn near double.
Yeah.
Darn near double that size.
Yeah.
So
Because we didn't know for sure, Nate said conservatively he'd say 85, but it was probably bigger than that.
Yep.
So, but we'll never know.
Yeah. I mean, so that fish was giant. So you got to check it out in the show. Holding it, I felt there was no way it wasn't 100 pounds.
Yeah. And that was after it kind of calmed down, because while I was fighting it, I'm like, this thing is 200 pounds.
It was so funny. Jeff, I got to give credit where credit's due. They had Jeff put it on his shoulder for a picture, and I was like, I want a picture with that thing before we let it go. So then they're like, all right, put it on your shoulder. And I just tried to kind of do it like I did with mine. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I physically, I can't do that. So I have to position myself to get under it to lift, because just flipping it up ain't going to happen. I mean, I tried to just kind of like, and I was like, okay, I will get under you. I apologize.
This ain't just a sack of potatoes.
Yeah. There was a picture of 4 of us with it, and all of us were holding a piece of her.
Mm-hmm.
Not me.
Well,
I was being
busy.
affectionate.
You were in the background.
Ryan was like, Ryan was being Ryan. He ruined half the pictures. But that is our noodling catfish kind of description. I just kind of wanted to give the summary because it's so fascinating. The way the males do things, the way the tendencies of the blue cats being a different fighter than the flatheads, the difference in the meat, the exciting feeling of being underwater for 2 minutes to try and tackle one of these things, and the need for air, the need to fight, the fight or flight situation, the knowing if you come up and let go of it, you might lose it. It's just it's an exciting episode. Yeah. It's very real, and too, from a production standpoint, I think it's one of for it having the capabilities of being very boring, because it's like monotonous of like, is that it? Monotonous?
Yeah.
Of just
you're just sitting there for half the time waiting to see what happens.
Making stupid jokes about each other. Yeah, so I think from a production value, it's very well done too. I'm really excited about the way you guys filmed it and the way your creative eye that you and AJ had, Ryan.
Which was tough because we didn't have a lot of options as far as what we could do with cameras.
No, it's like we're in mud water, and we're just standing there looking stupid going underwater where you can't see us for half of it. But you guys
just have to be ready. You just have to.
You guys did a great job. Yeah. Looking at the footage, it was absolutely awesome. Now, talking about letting stuff go and keeping stuff, something that keeps coming up in conversation. We had Ryan's birthday was after the last podcast, actually. You'll see. We talk about we're going to cook steaks. While eating those steaks, you had to be there, AJ left. But while eating those steaks, we're having a conversation about possession limits. And this is something that we talk about a lot. So for those of you who don't know, possession limits are laws put in place from a state level for the most part that allow you to keep and possess game. And there's two main variables. One is daily bag limit, and 2 is possession limit. So the first time I heard about the possession limit when I was a kid, I thought I misunderstood it because I thought it made no sense. So I was like, I must not even be hearing you correctly because what you're saying is stupid. So that was how I felt at the time. Mm-hmm. So
I think that's how most people feel the first time.
Yeah.
Well, I caught it. Now I possess it.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about going out daily bag limits, let's start there. So let's say you're allowed 6 walleye a day on the river that you're fishing. So you catch 6 walleye, you have to let everyone after that go. You got your 6. You know what I mean? That's your 6 for the day, no question. Now, to me, I would go home and fillet those fish, put them in the freezer, go back out again, fish the next day. I know daily possession, I'm only allowed to have 6. I'm only allowed to get 6. So what a possession limit is the amount you're allowed to have in your possession in your freezer in addition, or in anything in addition to anything else. So before I get too biased or have too much of an opinion on it, I'm going to read you from the handbooks in the state of Michigan what they say as far as the daily bag limit. The first one is coming from the Hunting Digest. So this is in game birds and small game. So the daily bag limit means the maximum number of game birds or animals of a single species or combination of species permitted to be taken by one person in any day during the season. So for instance, a sharp-tailed grouse, the daily bag limit is 2, meaning if you go out hunting, you can shoot no more than 2 of them as an individual.
Right.
Very somewhat easy to understand. Now the possession limit for this means the maximum number of game birds or animals of a single species or combination of species permitted to be possessed by any one person when lawfully taken in Michigan. Okay, so that is all it says. There's not more, there's not less. So for the sharp-tailed grouse, the possession limit is 4. Okay? Now another variable, the season limit for sharp-tailed grouse is 6. Okay? So... yeah, there's a season limit in our state for that. So this means that if you went out and shot 2 birds.
Yep. And you had 2 in the freezer.
And you put them in the freezer. Then the next day you went out and shot 2 birds and you put them in the freezer. You would not be able to shoot a bird on the 3rd day unless you ate some of the first 4 you killed.
Wow.
Based on how I'm reading it. Based on that. So...
that's my understanding of possession limits.
But here's the thing. It says season limit is 6, which means that you could go out, shoot 2, day 1, go home and eat them. Everybody eats them. The next day you go out, shoot 2, put them in your freezer. The 3rd day you shoot 2, put them in your freezer, but you're done for the season.
So it's
Even if you
it's
eat
the
other
cap.
ones.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Man,
that's a tough one to.
if you're rough grouse hunting, you're like, they take off so fast, you're like, I hope that's not a sharp tail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know they're different, but it's like,
I'm just wondering, how do you like enforce that? It'd be really. I'm not saying you should, but I'm just saying enforcing that someone only takes 6 a year. You're really just going off the honor system at that point.
yeah. And now I think to me, and I could be wrong, the season limit makes more sense to me than any of the other ones.
Than a possession limit?
Yeah.
I'd rather have a season limit than a possession limit.
I think it makes way more sense.
I think possession limits are ridiculous because as long as you're following the law and you're only getting 2 sharp tails a day, who cares how long you have them?
Yeah.
So before we go down the
I'm
line,
sure there's some flaws to what I just said, but
so before we go too far down the rabbit hole, well, we weren't talking rabbits though. This is ducks.
I was going to say, what are you laughing at?
So you want to get freaked out? Here's the duck one. The daily bag limit shall be 6 ducks of any species. However, no more than 4 shall be mallards, and no more than 2 of those should be hens. I don't know why I'm stroking out here. No more than 3 wood ducks, 2 redheads, 2 canvasbacks, 2 black ducks, 1 pintail, 1 or 2 scalp, depending on season date. See table below. Jeez, oh Pete. In addition to the duck limit, hunters may take 5 mergansers, only 2 of which should be hooded mergansers. The possession limit is 3 times the daily limit of ducks and mergansers. As part of the total daily limit for ducks as described above, the daily limit of scalp for zones and dates specified shall be below. And so there's a table below that shows that.
That's a lot
So
to
you're
memorize.
sitting out in the duck blind.
Wait,
and
hold
you
on.
shot 2 birds, and now I just picture that GIF of Galifianakis from that movie where he's got all the math around his head, and he's like, hang
oh
on.
yeah.
And he's figuring it out, like, how many do you shoot? And then 2 of those, but that one's a hen. And okay, shoot it. It's already gone.
And you're expected to know all that when you're out there.
Oh yeah.
That's aggressive.
You are expected to know it, and that is an intimidating thing because
That's a flaw I see with our system also. The way the laws are set up and the way you have to read them, it's kind of intimidating for anyone new who's trying to get into it. Because as soon as you start reading the laws on it and you've never done it before, you're like, well, it doesn't matter what I do. I have to stay in line at all times perfectly, and it's so easy to mess up. And if I do mess up, now I'm paying hundreds of dollars or getting my rights taken away to hunt.
Yeah, if you're gonna make it that hard and that complicated, have like a class or something where you can at least get like some point. Like I've never seen.
they have online stuff, but it's here's the thing. when laws get really complicated and they become really difficult to understand, they feel real baity. Like they're trying to get you on something. That's what I'm uncomfortable with. I feel like,
and they can't wait to.
They can't wait.
But it's on the other hand, when that law was first written, it was probably like 4 mallards, and that was it. And then someone was like, "Well, you didn't say this too." Like someone's always finding a loophole, so they have to add this and that and this and that.
Yeah, but the only way to solve loopholes is to make it very blunt, just easy to understand. Yeah. The ducks are a unique thing because duck hunting, there's like 50 species you could be shooting, so it's like. I kind of understand the duck one, but man, you shoot 2 hen mallards right out of the gate, you get real nervous on every other duck coming in. Is that a black duck? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, that one gets risky. Yeah. I want to talk about the fishing one real quick. So in addition, the possession limit definition, that's what I've been reading, by the way, in the guides that you're given from the DNR. In addition to 1 day's daily possession limit of fish, a person may possess an additional 2 daily possession limits of fish taken during previous fishing days, provided the additional limits of fish are processed, canned, cured by smoking or drying, or frozen. This provision does not apply to lake sturgeon or muskie. Anglers who have not attained the age of 17 are entitled to the possession limit even though they do not have a fishing license. A person fishing waters bordered by other states or provinces and possessing multiple other states. Hold on a second. A person fishing waters bordered by other states or provinces and possessing multiple fishing licenses may possess the limit allowed for only 1 license while in transit. But while fishing in Michigan waters, must comply with Michigan possession and size limits. So in what is going on? In a unique situation, where you look at the Detroit River for us, let's say you're walleye fishing. You can go on Canada's side, you can go on Michigan side. If you go on the there's a different bag limit for the two.
Yeah.
So you can only abide by 1. You can't go get 6 in Canada and then 5 here, is what it's saying.
Well, see, you can, but you have to leave them over there.
Yeah.
You can't bring them back with you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird thing, It's like so. The possession. The weird thing is with the fish is an anomaly happens where. So does that mean if you have, let's say the limit was 6 walleye, you lived alone. You go out and get 6 walleye, and you bring them home, and you don't freeze them. You set them in a marinade. They're not frozen, so they're just in the refrigerator. They're not frozen. So you got them in their marinade, and they're getting ready to go to the grill. You go out and get 6 more today and bring them home. You broke the law.
Yeah.
You're a terrible person.
Yeah. And so, but like you said, how would that be enforced? And I think that's what irritates me is like unenforceable laws. So when we had Ted Nugent on, he kind of went off on this. He said, why is everything so complicated and why is everything a gotcha? And here's the other messed up thing about all this, AJ. You want to know how severe a penalty is for this stuff?
I do.
It's a misdemeanor on your record. Like, you'll get documents from lawyers saying, hey, you need to go fight this in court. I mean, this is a big deal.
You get summoned to court date? No.
Yeah, like, over this stuff. That matters, man.
And that's where it feels a little gotcha.
And let me tell you something. If you're new to hunting and fishing, and you get a misdemeanor where you're going to court and stuff over this stuff, what's the likelihood you'll ever hunt and fish and buy a hunting fishing license again?
Very high.
How much are you going to want to donate to conservation organizations to be part of this wonderful community that
you just gave $200 to the state,
right,
for something that is pretty murky, if you ask me.
So the possession limits, I remember the first time I heard about them, I said, well, if I'm going out walleye fishing and I catch 6 walleye and I do it again the next day and I do it again the next day, I'm never breaking the daily bag limit. There's no season limit in place. So what am I hurting? What am I doing wrong? Why can't I put them in my freezer?
If you go home and eat them that day, or if you eat them 2 weeks later,
right? And what does that mean if I I got relatives that want to eat walleye and I give them some, so it's at their house now.
That's the other thing. Say you're walleye fishing on the Detroit River. Whenever we go, there's lots of locals who go there to fish. Detroit isn't a very wealthy place. What if those people are actually genuinely going there for a meal?
Right.
Yeah.
What then?
And especially like for hunting for grouse, for example. If people are using this as a method to have food for the winter for grouse ain't gonna cut it for you
Nah.
to get you through the winter.
No.
Right.
What
Well, I
you
get
can
that.
hunt for other animals.
Yeah,
I get
and
that,
you
but,
got to be
know,
careful because the limit should be based on what the species can sustain.
Sure.
You know, the sustain yield. So we want to be, when we're hunting and fishing, we're harvesting the access to make room for next year's fawns, youth, the new animals coming in. That's the point of it, is there's excess wild game that the ecosystems can't sustain. So you need to take out the surplus, consume it as a renewable resource. That way there's enough food for all the upcoming ones. It's a beautiful thing.
I really would like to know more about what the idea behind the possession limit, where that came from, what that is, like how. I don't understand. I really don't. And I'm sure there's a reason.
And it's an unenforceable law. That's what it really gets down to.
I rather see possession limits all turned into realistic season limit.
Yep.
Laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Or set the daily bag limit so that the number of people that buy hunting and fishing licenses won't outdo the species, and then nobody's playing gotcha. How about that? How about daily bag limit and make sure you buy a license? Call it a day.
Yeah.
You know, set up if you need to make the daily bag limit 4 in order to account for the people that catch a lot, then do it. But make it so it's not a gotcha situation, and don't make laws you can't enforce that make no sense. Yeah. That's my take on it.
It's weird that you're relying on the honor system, but at the same time,
you're not
assuming people are going to do bad and you're out to get them. It's like, I'm just trying to fish, guy. What?
Right.
You know?
And I couldn't even it never crossed my mind when I first got into hunting that I could buy a license. Okay, I'm allowed to catch 6 a day. I could put those in the freezer. I can't wait to go fishing tomorrow. What a great day we had. Oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah, you piece of crap.
Be
But
cognizant.
it says the
everything.
daily thing. So because of that, I read you the regulations from Michigan, but check the state you're in because don't play gotcha.
Yeah,
I know, like Rich was telling me out in Washington, my brother Rich, out in Washington was saying how on certain rivers there's certain laws here where it's barbless, but if you walk 10 feet the other way, it's barbed, and depending on where you're at, you could just be screwed.
Right.
Because if you go just a little bit too far down the river and you didn't know, it's like
They're waiting.
Oh yeah, it's like completely gotcha state. On
Yeah.
every single river, every chunk of river is different.
Trout fishing's
Post
the
it
hardest in any state.
You
Huh?
know? You post it then.
with
They'll
like
be
weight
like-
limits, you know?
They'll be like, if you're between mile road 10 and 6, then you use this. But as soon as you go past this stretch of the river, then you're this. If latitude, longitude of that, and you're like, I don't have service out here.
Someone had to come out and survey that in order to set up, here's where it is. Put a little pole or something that's like, it's blue. All the blue ones you can do, make it something that's actually attainable, that
Right.
people can actually do.
Nah.
I don't think that's how it works though, honestly, and they want money.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It's kind of a bummer.
So, to move to something more lighthearted, I was talking with some people about hummingbirds because we were sitting on their deck watching.
Oh, because they're so light?
Yeah.
They don't weigh much.
They're
No, they
light-
don't.
Really little hearts, they're very lighthearted.
Yeah.
Nice.
We were sitting on the back deck watching them feed in the sugar feeder, and they're just the coolest
Was it
animals.
legal baiting?
Yeah.
Misdemeanor. No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
And then I asked if hummingbirds were migratory because I didn't really know. I never researched it. It seemed like they would be in
You
a
ever
sense.
seen one in the winter, Ryan?
No, but I didn't know
Yeah,
if they
okay.
hibernate or what they do. But they're so small, it seems like the winter could get to them easy. Turns
Yeah.
out they do migrate,
Mm-hmm.
and they go to Mexico and Central America. And
From here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From here.
Say what?
They can go like
Yeah.
20 miles a day.
Let him.
I'm just kidding. This is his story, okay? You're not allowed to know facts.
Well, as it turns out, it's fascinating how far they can actually go,
Yeah.
because
Don't they weigh less than a dime?
I don't know how much they weigh exactly,
It's something
Very
crazy
light.
like
but I mean,
What a
Their
comparison.
bones are like hollow.
yeah, they're very
light.
like porous
Yeah.
to make them lighter. What they'll do is when they're moving back south for the winter, when they say they're here in Michigan, they'll slowly make their way south. They don't know, scientists don't know what's making them think, oh, it's time to go south, because they're beating that cold weather.
Yeah,
So the weather is still consistently warm,
sure.
but somehow something's making them know. No,
So that-
and they can't understand why.
How long the day lasts.
Maybe.
Maybe they follow flowers.
Maybe they're not
Who
distracted
knows?
because they have such light weight. They're not worried about their diet. Speaking of which, they weigh 0.14 to 0.16 ounces.
Wow.
So 0.14 and 0.16, somewhere in there.
Wow.
Crazy. I just looked it up.
So they'll start making their way south, and on their way south, they'll be feeding, obviously, and then they'll get to the Gulf. And this is the crazy part. What they'll do is, on their whole way down, they're getting real fat and sassy and chubby, and then they'll
Bread and desserts and
they'll get to the Gulf of Mexico, and they'll look at the water, and they say, "I'm going for it," and they fly over the entire thing. 500 miles.
they fly over the Gulf of Mexico.
Fly over the entire thing in 18 to 24 hours.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Can you imagine,
500
like-
miles in 24
And we're trying to
hours.
make a speed
Are,
rail.
are they going in packs or?
No, each one of them is individual.
So
no
that-
no
that-
one flies together.
So the 20 miles that I've heard, that's like maybe an average, not how much they can go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So there's
imagine how big the Gulf of Mexico is, and this little itty bitty bird. Imagine being on a boat, and like
one of those is singing by.
being stranded, and like you're hoping for any sign of life to come by, because then you know you're close to land, and like and you're like a hummingbird. Oh,
200 hummingbirds. We're there.
I must be very close to land. I'm good to go, but you're not.
That's awesome.
You could be closer to land in the other direction.
Yeah. So I just thought that was fascinating that these little things make it there across the Gulf of Mexico in a day.
Little itty bitty hummingbirds going that far. What do you think, AJ? Huh?
I'm wondering if are they able? They can't stop anything. They're just,
No, they just go. It's non-stop. There's no stopping.
They
500 miles
That's
in 18
nuts.
hours.
Do you think there's a when they get to the end of the land, they're like, I'm gonna stretch.
Well, I think that's what happens.
They
is
come in and just lawn dart into the beach. Just
Yeah, once they make it.
maybe that transition from the north to the end, the Gulf, they're just consuming, and then maybe that energizes them on that long flight.
Well, that's what the article I was reading was talking about, that when they fly back north, they're real skinny. So they fatten up over the summertime to get ready to go back south. And they're much more agile in the spring because they're so skinny and narrow. There's pretty much nothing on them from their migration north. So they fatten up a whole bunch. And what it sounds like, by the time they make it back to across the Gulf, it's the same thing again, where they're just down to skin and bones, nothing. And they have to fatten all up again. And
then they're only 0.011 ounces.
Right.
yeah, I just couldn't believe that
That little itty bitty
that
bird.
thing
I
is
would not thought
flying
that.
like that.
Okay, so coming into this, I knew 2 facts. One was on average about 20-some miles a day. The other one is
Turns
that
out it's wrong.
while they're flying, while they're migrating, their little hearts, which I can't imagine are more than the size of like a pea or
Tick.
something. Yeah, real little. They beat 1,300 times per minute.
1,300 beats per
Man.
minute.
Heart rate.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that, humans?
Like 60?
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning into the Greenway Outdoors podcast. We had a blast with you. We're here every single week, but don't forget we have an actual TV show called The Greenway Outdoors. It's on Sportsman Channel Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's also on a few other times throughout the week. We also have a hunt cast, but Ryan edits it, so it's like so-so. But that is on our Carbon TV channel as well as our YouTube channel, so check out our secondary TV show. Also, check out the other YouTube videos we have. We have tons of podcast clips. We have tons of how-to videos. We just released a few more. We also have, Ryan, we've got merch on the GreenwayOutdoors.store.
super
Don't
pumped
forget
for that.
about the quick trips.
The quick trips are, well, that's the hunt cast. It's just a piece of it. You can check.
Oh my
Jeez,
It's
you
a
can-
different clip.
You can check that
Say
out
the
too.
same thing about the podcast clips then.
So I only said the podcast clips. Anyways, go check it out. Our YouTube channel, everything's there. Instagram, Facebook, connect with us. We'd like to hear what topics you'd like to see us do on our show, and also what you'd like to see us talk about here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay green.